Hello, I'm modern alchemist Adora Winquist, and I'm very excited to be with you here today. Today, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Rachel Eva Dew, and I'm sure she's going to be joining us in just a moment. Hello, Dr.
Well,
Rachel.
hello. Hi there.
Hi, it's a
Trying to
pleasure.
turn off my notifications.
Hi, wonderful to be with you here today.
Yes, absolutely wonderful to connect. I'm so looking forward to chatting.
Me too. I just wanted to read a little bit about you to our listeners today because you have such a beautiful and impressive background. So entertain me a moment. Dr.
Sure.
Rachel Eva Dew is the co-founder and CEO of Modi Health. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Dr. Rachel? Okay, great. And is a double board certified doctor of natural and integrative medicine. She's additionally certified in more than 20 healing modalities that support her integrative approach to whole person health and well-being. And before co-founding Modi Health was in clinical practice for over 20 years. It is her passion for whole person care, optimizing health and empowering well-being that led her to build the Modi Health platform, ModiIHT.com, which offers integrative whole person virtual care, which is so brilliant, health programs, and a health streaming service. Dr. Rachel is also the author of 5 books, just incredibly impressive, Dr. Rachel, including Transform, and her most recent book, Healing the Total Self. Dr. Rachel is passionate about helping people optimize their health and mind, body, heart, and spirit. You can read more about Dr. Rachel at drracheldew.com. So wonderful to be with
Well,
you
thank
today.
you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Um, I am so grateful to you for writing the beautiful endorsement for my new book that's co-authored with Dr. Lulu Shamik, Detox-Nourish-Activate Plant Vibrational Medicine for Energy, Mood, and Love. And, it's such a pleasure to be able to talk with someone today who is so aligned with all of these aspects about natural medicine and empowering our best lives. It's just, incredibly aligned with my path as well. So,
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to chat with you. And I love meeting especially other women who are like-minded and very aligned and really educating and bringing these types of messages out to the world. So I really enjoyed your book. And one of the things that I was hoping we could start off chatting about, and this is really something I'm passionate about from my experience as a doctor of natural medicine, and not only being in clinical practice, but also having a health platform and seeing thousands and thousands of people in their journey to achieving better health mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, and really approaching that from a holistic and integrative approach. I'm very passionate about really taking accountability and ownership of your journey, and really of the outcomes and the destiny that you co-create and experience. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
absolutely. I love the term co-creation because, especially when we're looking at holistic healing and we're looking at DNA level healing, we are the walking miracles of limitless potential for transformation, for healing, for embodying our own path of self mastery, which is so incredibly unique to every single person, right? And my firm belief is that every moment, every footstep of our path, of our life, has brought us perfectly to this moment here in time, even though the journey is incredibly imperfect. And so in this moment, we have the co-creative ability to harness the power of our intention with the potency of the present moment, and then looking at our psycho-spiritual dynamics, patterns, and subconscious motivations, intertwining them with esoteric philosophy and metaphysical teachings that are of ancient origin, and then working with the plant and vibrational medicines and the alchemy of the natural world. From my perspective, and I think yours too, there isn't anything that is beyond the limitation for transformation in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And I think that, I love that you mentioned, sort of the esoteric and the psychosocial, and all of these are these dynamic elements. And, from my perspective, I'm very rooted in science, but also a huge believer in integrating in ancient science, right? Ancient proven techniques and modalities, and there's so much richness for our healing and our personal development from those. And I think that more and more we're seeing modern science now able to verify and validate some of these ancient practices and really show scientifically how they work, right? Previously, it was, modern science kind of shooed that all out and said, that's all pseudoscience, that's not valid. And, then slowly over time, they started to integrate in and see the scientific data backing things like Chinese medicine, which have been practiced for thousands of years, and chiropractics even, and acupuncture. And those are now have been started to be adopted into more mainstream allopathic medicine. So I think we're moving in that direction. And I think your book is a really great example of all of the tools and techniques and modalities that will eventually be, more fully integrated in and validated by science, right? But it's beautiful that we can all have access to these now and, begin working on ourselves. And I think, each one of our journeys is very unique, and we're able to test and see what works for us, as well as weighing it against science, right? So another thing that I love about your book is really you're calling people's awareness back to the connection that we as human beings in our DNA and down to the core of who we are vibrationally as well as on a cellular level, that there's a connection to nature that we can't continue to ignore and separate and disconnect from that further. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your perspective on DNA and the connection to nature as well.
Thank you. I think that that's a great question. And I love your integration of the science as well as the esoteric or art of medicine and healing. And, kind of brings me back to when our belief system was Cartesian in thought and how everything was separate and mind was separate from body. And now, as we're increasing our awareness, our education through research, through the study of quantum physics, and all of these aspects of science, we can see how utterly interconnected everything is. And so when we look at the DNA and we look at the beautiful patterning, right, of the DNA strand that is imprinted within our cellular consciousness of every single being on this planet, we are united in that way, which I think is such a powerful connotation of science showing the interconnectedness of the human spirit. And when we start to look at patterns like this in nature, right, when we're looking at things like sacred geometry, but how it shows up in our flowers, in our shells, like the nautilus shell, right, and the Fibonacci sequence, and all of these aspects of patternings that are intrinsic to nature, it calls us back to our connection and how patterning is not only present within our cellular consciousness, that it's present then holographically through our energy beings, our energy bodies, our auric field, and then how it's connected to nature through all of the aspects of the natural world, whether we're looking at the plants or the minerals or through the cosmos, right? And all of the beautiful patterns that are there. And so I think this is such a reminder that we're being called home to that inner spiral within ourselves, and how the allies from the natural world, specifically from the plant kingdom, are tremendous facilitators of our healing journey, whether it's from a physiological perspective because of the biochemical aspects of the plant, or from the quintessence and more of the vibrational aspects that are buried there. So these patterns that are imprinted in nature, and we are imprinted throughout our cells and our DNA, are magnetically drawn to each other. And so the further away we get from that, the further we get from ourselves and our connection to the earth and to the divine consciousness above, however every individual terms that.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that there's some very simple ways that that shows up, right? I mean, that can sound very complex and esoteric in nature, but it's really very prevalent in our day-to-day life. So, for example, a lot of us are eating foods that are grown out of season. They're forced into a growth cycle, right? We're no longer working with the natural, cyclical, the seasons, the cycles that are within the earth, and we're creating conflict both between ourselves and nature, right? It's like we're trying in this modern world to sort of rewire how everything's done, but our bodies are designed and wired to be in alignment with those cycles and designed to be in alignment with nature. And so we're seeing, obviously more and more impact of that disalignment in our climate change. And I think the last year and a half during the pandemic, it's been an opportunity for us to reevaluate that and see very clearly the interconnectedness of how much we actually impact each other, right? So someone might be in India right now, and I could sit here and think that what I'm doing here has no impact on them, what they're doing has no impact on me. But, I love that beautiful phrase, we're here to awaken from the illusion of separateness. And I think that that's, a big part of it as well with the human race, the separation with nature, that really just coming back into alignment with how we are designed to operate, really increases not only our vibration, but then obviously impacts every aspect of self, mind, body, heart, and spirit as well.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's
that's
great.
so brilliant. And I love what you said about alignment, right? Because when we're in alignment, we're in a place of flow. We're in a place of allowing the innate energy that is within us to move, to circulate through our bodies, to guide our healthier habit patterns, our choices, whether it's through healthier nutrition or healthier relationships or healthier thought processes. Um, and I think in terms of connecting to nature, that there is a very innate primordial drive within us, right, to simply connect. And from a very simplistic perspective, even taking your shoes off and going to walk barefoot on the earth is incredibly healing, reminding us of our connection that is there and removing all of the layers of separation, because the separation first occurs within our mind and our belief system and our emotions, far before our physical experiences of separation. And this is where looking at our subconscious patternings and belief systems and emotional responses is such a powerful way that we can move into empowering ourselves for healthier choices, healthier experiences, and healthier intentions, right? Because our intention drives action. And so oftentimes we're not aware when our intention comes from a negative perspective, right? And
Yeah,
the more that
absolutely.
we move into those levels of detoxification, whether it's our food and our environment, I think
Mhm.
curating our environment is so important right now, in particular right now, to be able to create the conditions around us for the healthiest experience and expression of our life force and our freedom, our joy, and our vibrancy, and our unification with each other.
Yeah, I love how you said that because, I completely agree and see that very frequently that our physical health, for example, is often the place that the results show up. right? So the mental, emotional, spiritual results show up in the physical,
Yeah,
and that's where they manifest, right? So it's important to get to that root cause, right? And you
absolutely.
mentioned something of like detoxing and taking ownership and, you know, being very intentional about creating your environment and things of that nature. And one of the things that I do want to mention about that is, you know, I've sort of seen, you know, as the whole wellness movement has gained popularity, and now we have products and we have foods that are cleaner options that we can purchase, and there's all of these choices. One of the things that I am seeing is something that's a little upsetting to me, which is that becoming well and being able to create a healthy environment around you as a human being is becoming more and more expensive, less and less accessible to those who aren't, you know, financially upwardly mobile. And, you know, that disturbs my heart. You know, I think that every human being has an innate right to be able to create abundance and health and prosperity within their mind, their body, their heart, and their spirit. So I'm always excited to see resources like your book that, you know, are easy to access and begin taking steps to create more well-being and balance in your life that don't cost thousands of dollars, right? Taking your shoes off, putting your feet in soil, you know, things that are accessible to every human being. And then the other thing too is there's also a mindset that I see quite often that I try to help patients and friends steer away from, which is this absolute all or nothing approach. Oh my gosh, everything's toxic. I have to live in a bubble. Well, that actually just triggers your fight or flight, and then you're in a constant state of stress, which breaks down the immune system. So
Mhm.
it's very counterproductive. So I think every human being really needs to look at their life, look at what they're choosing and creating, and begin to move towards more balance and more well-being versus that all or nothing approach. Because we can't, the world is, you know, our air is toxic, our environments are often polluted. We cannot create or control the creation of what is being co-created. We can only do our part to reduce that and also to reduce what we're being exposed to. But I think it's important to find balanced ways to do that. So I'd love to hear you talk about how in the book you sort of break down those three steps or three sections, right? The detox and then nourish and activate. And I would love to hear you chat a little bit more about that and kind of how people can achieve those in balanced ways.
Yeah, I love this question because I think that sometimes the simpler our approach, the easier it is for us to take those first action steps towards change. And then those action steps become stepping stones, right, for even greater impact and shift. And so when we were looking at patterns with our clients and patients, and of course ourselves and our own healing journey, of like, okay, why does it continually occur where people have been going for many sessions of healing or many types of thought philosophy or thought leaders or working with nutrition or just working with vibrational medicine, but they're not experiencing those either quantum shifts or sustainable shifts. And so from the Detox Nourish Activate perspective, we looked at it from an infinite concept of healing. From the infinite perspective, and that's one of the reasons that you'll see the infinity symbol woven throughout the book, is that for sustainable shifts, for quantum shifts in our healing and consciousness, we need to approach things both from a physiological perspective as well as a psycho-spiritual perspective. One without the other isn't holistically powerful enough to shift at that quantum level, at that DNA level, to shift those patterns that continue to perpetuate despite our deepest wishes for them to be different. And then to break it down to neat detox, nourish, activate. I mean, imagine this, right? You decide to go to your favorite health food store. You have an infinite amount of money to spend, right? There's no limitations in this analogy. And so you purchase all of your favorite foods that you know are going to deeply nourish your being: teas, healthy waters, and other beverages. supplements that you know that your body needs to balance itself to bring it back to homeostasis and peak performance. You purchase your favorite skincare products or other aromatics or other tools for your home to raise the vibration. And you come home, you open the refrigerator, and it is full. It is not just full, it's overflowing, and the food is breaking down and rotting. So, what's going to happen if we put all of this beautiful nutrition in there? Right? The bacteria from the food breaking down is going to quickly break down all of the food that we put in and that we've spent our hard earned resources, right? The same thing if we bring all of this into a home that's filled with clutter or an environment with relationships that are toxic. And so we have to come into a place of looking at toxicity, not just from what we put in our body or what we breathe, but from our relationships, how we take care of ourselves, how we're loving, how we're nourishing, compassionate. Our relationships, are they healthy and honoring and respectful? And so there's all of these aspects of detoxification to let go of all of the old ways and patterns and beliefs and emotions and thought constructs that no longer serve us, to be able to come in and nourish, right? Just like if we were preparing the soil for a garden, right? Before we can plant the seeds, we have to till the soil, we have to balance the pH. So it creates the conditions for something to grow and then flourish. And so when we look at the nourish aspect, that's when we really come into a deep, authentic conversation about our self-care, whether it's self-love, self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, self-love, all of these different aspects of caring deeply and honoring ourselves to then activate our sovereignty, our life force, and actualize the dreams and desires that we have for our lives held at the level of our soul. So, this is how we can really move through the layers of our humanity and our human experience and everything that we've carried, not just in this life, but genetically through our DNA, and have the ability to shift at that quantum level.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, I always will say you can go and you can have a Reiki session. You can go, you can have a chiropractic adjustment, right? But if you can't maintain that and change the frequency to a healthy frequency, really that's almost no different than just going to see a traditional medical doctor and popping a pill, right? It becomes very topical. And so I'm a deep believer in that you obviously have to treat things topically like imbalances, disalignments, but you also have to go to the root cause and root that out so that what you can manifest and create moving forward is that of health. Yeah, so that's great.
Absolutely.
What about specifically about energy, mood, and love? Let's talk about that because you definitely go into that in the book as well.
Well, from the perspective of energy, mood, and love, we really sat back and looked at the different systems of the body, right? And just like you so eloquently said, that the body is the manifestation of what's happening on all of the levels of our being, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And so the physical body is this beautiful mapping where we get drawn to our curiosity, our intention, and our attention by any type of imbalance that we're experiencing. And so when we looked at all of these patterns around health, around well-being, around self-actualization, right? Really being able to embody your life's purpose and thrive, we could see that the three major systems of the body were the adrenal system, relating to our energy, also connecting into the root chakra, our connection to the earth, and everything primordial about being in our bodies, being on the earth, being in this incarnation completely, connected to our tribe, right? Our family of origin, our community, our loved ones. And then moving up to love, of course, the heart, right? The seat and the center of our human existence and our connection between the higher realms and the earth. And knowing that the heart is deeply connected to our experience of love. and our profound ability to give and receive love, and to deeply connect intimately with those that we're in relationship with, because the heart is the seat of all of our relationships. And then, of course, mood, right? I mean, when we're so much right now, in the past year and a half, almost 2 years, talking about mood and consistency, mood and balance. So connecting in with the brain and nervous system, and of course the crown chakra are connected to divine consciousness, and how we can balance and boost our brain and our mood. So from everything from our exercise to our thought process, and looking at aspects of trauma that are held there. And then this gives us an incredible ability to connect deeply with the earth, deeply with the heavens above, and then deeply with each other from the heart center.
That's so beautiful. Very well played. And then I have something that it's one of the favorite things that I get asked when I'm talking about the books that I've written. So I'm going to ask this to you as well, because it's always really stirred my soul. I don't know about you, but when I've written books in the past, I have a very clear intention. I have a very clear desire. And as I'm penning this book, and for those who might be listening who haven't written books, it's a painstaking process. It's layer upon layer, edit upon edit, revision upon revision. It takes a very long time, and a lot of energy and time and dedication. And I hold with me the intention that I bring into it as I'm kind of struggling through those parts of the process of writing a book. And it's always, that intention is always, what if I was connecting my heart to the reader's heart, what is it that I would want them to take away from this experience? If it was just one thing that they could take away and gain from the experience of having that relationship with the book and reading it, what would that be? So I'm going to kind of pass that off to you and see what your intention was.
Well, this is a great question. I actually haven't thought about it this particular way, but through the process of writing this book, I went through over 20 years of journals of essential oil formula, client stories, energetic configurations came through in meditation. My own healing journey, going through all of the different modalities that I studied, in particular the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, which was such a germane, pivotal, transformational process for me. And what occurred to me as I was going through this, that this book really was an offering of transcendence from everything that I've assimilated in my journey and lifetime, and perhaps many more lifetimes as a healer, in an offering to humanity of, on one level, if I've been able to overcome these levels of adversity, then absolutely you can too, which is why I share a lot from a very vulnerable perspective about my past and my path. And that ultimately for each and every person to remember that innately the spark of divinity and sovereignty and freedom, right, is present within all of us, that it unites all of us, and that each and every person has a gift, has a purpose on this planet, has something that only they can bring to the world, not only for their own healing and for the healing of their lineage, but ultimately for the benevolence of humanity. And so we all have that encoded within our being, within our soul, as well as our DNA.
Thank you for saying that, for bringing up you overcoming adversity, because I say all the time, and I'm a true believer of this, that our past doesn't define our future, but we can learn from our past and gift what we've used to forward to others. And that every single human being that walks this planet has the ability to co-create the next chapter of their life and to shift their outcomes. So thank you for bringing that up too. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. So eloquently put by yourself as well.
Well,
it's such an important reminder that no matter, we've all suffered, right? We've all experienced adversity, and we heal in community. We heal by sharing stories and being vulnerable with each other, because it creates this beautiful circuit of light, healing, and alchemical and for growth. And so, um, we are all infinite and deeply connected in that way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And as you're also talking about suffering, suffering is sometimes part of the human experience. It's part of our journey. And, there's a Buddhist philosophy when you remove the suffering, you also remove the lesson. And so I think here in the West, we're very attached to being comfortable at all times, right? We don't want to suffer. We don't want to struggle. But just because something feels bad doesn't necessarily mean it is bad, right? And so growth is sometimes very uncomfortable. Sometimes the struggles or challenges that we face, or the issues or traumas we've experienced in the past, are very uncomfortable, very hurtful, bring up a lot of negative emotions. And as we're clearing them or working through them or moving forward, we are still, processing and releasing those. And so if anybody's going through some kind of a health journey right now, or even a well-being journey, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that would just be my recommendation to consider, is that, keeping in mind that just because something doesn't feel good doesn't mean it isn't good, and that suffering or that challenge or that struggle may be part of the journey in order to grow and heal and kind of shift and optimize our entire existence to another level.
That is so well put, Dr. Rachel. One of the core philosophies that came from the Brennan work is that our core wounding is really the pathway to our greatest gift, right? And so our lives are really this beautiful journey of not only excavation, but polishing ourselves, right? Because we are truly the beautiful and brilliant diamonds. The more that we polish ourselves through our journey of self transformation, self understanding, personal growth, the more we polish our own diamond to not only emanate more life, but light and life, but to be able to embody it and transmute it and transmit it in so many powerful ways, that really becomes a pathway to touch other people's ways in a very benevolent manner. And so I love that from the pathway of healing, because, in many respects, we have to go through it to get to it. And the getting to it is the beautiful light that exists within us, right? And so it's a matter of polishing and sifting and really caring for ourselves and coming back into our own love, and knowing that our love can transform everything in our lives and all around us.
Very beautifully put. And I appreciate you sharing that, because, so often I hear people in my life or patients over the years approaching self-development almost like self-punishment, right? I have to fix something. I have to change something. I'm bad and wrong.
Yeah.
And I always like to try to remind people that absolutely not. To me, there's no such thing as failure. Everything is a learning experience that provides feedback, and
Yes.
everything is an opportunity to grow. And so, I always say, be good and gentle to yourself on the process. Love yourself along the way, even if that's a challenge for someone, to start to begin leaning into the love that you have, and the acceptance and the tolerance and the patience and the space that you can grant yourself for the ability to, have permission to go on the journey, whatever that looks like. So,
I love
well,
it.
that's,
I think, what you just said, being gentle with yourself, it's something that I share with all of my clients and students, because we are too hard, we are too critical, right? We take the external voices that didn't feel good from when we were younger, they become our own voices until we can love ourselves through that pain and free ourselves to be kinder and gently more gentle and more loving with ourselves.
fantastic. Well, thank you so much for this time together. I so enjoyed our chat and look forward to many, many more. And if anybody's out there and you haven't read the book yet, I highly recommend it. I use it as a desk reference, and keep it handy because you can read it once and learn so much, but you can also kind of use it as a little reference and pop in and apply little tidbits and gems. So that would be my recommendation for everybody to check out your book.
I appreciate that so much. It's been a true pleasure communing here with you today, Dr. Rachel.
You as well. Well, take good care, and thanks everybody who joined us for this chat.
We'll see you soon.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.